Chairman, fellow panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm happy I got the invite from Haynes and the team to speak on this difficult topic. I'm obliged before I start to show you this definition and cautionary note. I'm here as an engineer, and I believe we're all technical people. I may not be able to answer some questions on environment, on some other things, but I'll fix my focus on the technical part. I've been introduced already, so if you see me on the corridor, just call me Benga. That's fine. Okay, this is a very, very interesting topic to discuss. It normally generates a lot of questions, a lot of discussion. And it's no longer a Nigerian phenomenon. This is now a global thing, as I will show later on. So I'll tell you about Nigeria at a glance, because I'll be speaking from the perspective of a practicing engineer in Nigeria, not Shell specifically. What kind of impact do we see from third-party interference in our pipelines? And what are the threats, long-term, short-term, the impact of growth in terms of population? And also, we'll talk about solutions. Remember, this is just a teaser. We'll have the opportunity to discuss at the end of the day. So basically, first about Nigeria. Many of you must know Nigeria for different reasons. I hope they're the right reasons. It's found in West Africa. It's land area roughly about 2.5 times the size of Germany, and has got independence from the UK in 1960. At that time, Nigeria was just 45 million people. Today, we're 193 million people. So that's a large increase in about 60 years. And the story doesn't end there, because by 2050, it is postulated that we'll be 400 million. We'll have surpassed the United States in population. So I see this as an opportunity for investment, for business in the near future. So in terms of pipelines, we have about 13,000 kilometers of pipelines, largely oil and gas pipelines. I mean, when you compare that to Germany, I see in Germany you have more than 34,000 kilometers of pipelines. I read it on the web. I hope it's true. So when you see 82 million people in a smaller country have 34,000 kilometers of pipeline, it just tells you that there's room for further development in terms of pipeline density in Nigeria. At the crux of this is the petroleum industry. For Nigeria, the petroleum industry is quite important. It's a major revenue earner. More than 50% of government earnings, the federal government earnings, is from oil and gas. And export earnings is about 90% from oil and gas. So oil and gas is pretty important to the nation. Nigeria produces about 2 million barrels of oil per day and 7 billion scf of gas per day. And the population, you can imagine the growth and how much energy is required to actually move the country forward. So basically, if you look at it, in the next 3 slides, I'll tell you about what kind of impact disruptions and third-party interference has on pipelines and on the country as a whole. So when people break into pipelines, steal products, disrupt activities, the impact is quite significant. And so you have security issues in the Niger Delta. You have environmental impact as a result. You have disruptions to power generation, and thereby disruption to industries, disruption to businesses, disruption to the public sector. And all this have tremendous impact on the economy as a whole. Some IOCs put it at about 90% of the spills we see in the country as a result of third-party interference. So this is quite a problem, but I'll show you later on that it's not all doom and gloom. The situation is improving somewhat. So basically, as you know, third-party interference can be broadly divided into 2 categories. The first one is unintentional, unintended interference, where you have somebody dig into your right-of-way, crack your pipeline open, or you have a contractor who, on a right-of-way, you have 5 lines, is to select one for decommissioning, and then he breaks into the wrong one. Those kind of incidents do occur, and that's unintentional, and that's not what we're looking at today. Today, we are talking about intentional, deliberate interference into pipelines, yeah? And this falls into a broad category of sabotage, where you have people bomb pipelines, shoot pipelines, wreak havoc on pipelines for various reasons. We can discuss that later. And also theft, which is a much more recent phenomenon where people on industrial scale hot tap, cold tap pipelines and siphon products from those pipelines for sale internationally and for local refinery. And locally, there's a menace called illegal refineries, where individuals in the Niger Delta form refineries. Just set up. It's very cheap to set up an illegal refinery, and they set this up, and then they have to get the crude to refine, and this is a big problem because it is the major contributor to oil spills in the region. Like I've said, when you look at it, a newspaper put it in January that the impact is about $3.9 billion US between 2013 and 2015. To put that into perspective, that is about 22% of the annual budget of the country in 2016. So you can imagine what kind of disruptions it means for the business of oil and gas in Nigeria when people break into the lines and steal products or sabotage and cause disruptions in production. So that's a major impact on the environment, major impact on citizens, and a major impact on the economy. So I'll quickly go to the solution space right now. Yeah, so I view this in about 4 dimensions. First of all, you must be able to detect. And that detection will fall into categories of quantification, how much is being stolen, and also where is it, location. So I put in 30,000 barrels into a line. At the end of the line, I received 20,000. I know 10,000 is missing, but you do an inspection of the whole line, you don't find where the connection is. So where is it located? And this is where technology comes in, and an opportunity to develop technologies that can actually do that. Although some exist, but this is one dimension of it. The second dimension is response. As you can imagine, these are difficult terrains, mangrove forests, swamps, shallow water estuaries. How do you respond? How do you get the right government agencies to respond? And how do you assess the extent and quantify what needs to be done? And that's in the second category. The third category is repair. So what kind of repair are you going to do? And in repair, we have learned that with time, the kind of technology you deploy for repair can actually reduce the reoccurrence of these incidents, because I will show you in a slide what we used to do in the past and what we're doing now. And then, of course, the last one is prevention. How do you prevent this from happening again in the future? Do you build new pipelines a different way? Do you deploy technology that can help in prevention? So these are all things we can discuss at the end of the day, and we're doing something about. So basically, in the past, we used to do sectional replacement. So we go there, shut down the line, and do a sectional replacement. But we found out that as you are doing a sectional replacement right here, beyond the line of sight, 4 kilometers away, somebody else is connecting something. Yeah. So as you're walking here, there's an illegal connection happening just down the road. So what we found out was that, look, if the leak point, if the illegal connection point is not leaking, can we repair this line while it is online? And we found out that we can do that. Maybe you reduce pressure, do a clamping, and what that means is that people cannot connect down the line because at least it excludes those individuals who do not have the technology to hot tap, for example. So it's a big menace. And then we progressed into cap and sleeve, where we just cap and weld sleeves on the line, because you can imagine that in some of these clamps, the lead time is 9 months, 12 months. It takes so long to get this clamp from Europe, from America, all the way to Africa. So local companies are developing sleeves and caps that we use. And then in the future, what our pipeline is going to look like. There's a local operator that recently announced last year that they just did a 67-kilometer line using what is called continuous HDD. This is horizontal direct current drilling, where a 20-inch line is buried up to 45 meters. So you must really dig well to get to that pipeline. Yeah. So this is the future, and some other things are coming up as well. So I'm looking at this conference because I'm going to learn from here as well. What can I take away? What can be useful in terms of the future and technology? So like I said, the situation is not all doom and gloom. 2013 was really bad, you know. More than 400, this is a case where I'm sharing SPDC story. SPDC is the onshore shell company. I work for the deep water shell company. And what you find is that there's been a significant reduction in the illegal connections that we have been having since 2015. Since 2013. We had a reduction in 2015, 2016, and that's the trend we're seeing. You could argue the reasons why. Maybe oil price went down. There was a new government that took response more seriously and did a lot of work in, responding. Divestment of some certain assets, those contributed as well. And of course, this is my final slide. This is a global problem, yeah? It's not just in Nigeria, I tell you. If you look at the CONCAL report, you will see that I was surprised to see that between 1971 and 2012, there were 28 incidents related to spill from third-party interference and theft. But between 2012 and 2015, there were 159 cases here in Europe. And what you find is that this is on the increase globally. I read the Petroleum Technology Journal, was it the last one? There was a publication on Mexico. It's a big problem in Mexico as well. China today, 57% of spills, of pipeline failure in China is related to theft and third-party interference. So this is a global trend. It's not just, if you look at it as an African problem alone, then I think you'll be mistaken. And finally, I would like to leave us with, I put an okapi on the left. It's an animal it's only found in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I don't know if anybody knows about this animal. It's an elusive animal. It has some characteristics that it has evolved over time. One of them is that it has scent on its feet. As it walks, it can scent. The second is that it has infrasonic communication with its calf. That is, when a leopard is around, it doesn't have to, you can't hear it. It's going to communicate with its calf, with its baby. And it has one of the longest tongues in mammalia. Yeah? It can wipe its eyes with its tongue, its ears with its tongue. And the reason why I bring this up is that innovation and technology has found the best examples in nature. And this is a problem that we have to look deeply and inwards and into nature to solve. So it's a challenge, an open challenge for all of us. How do we get from where we are to a better place? So let's have a discussion. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.